I've had a low-key fascination with speedrunning ever since I was introduced to it about 7 or 8 years ago, and one game I always enjoy watching speedruns of is Super Mario 64. You already know how this game revolutionized the video game industry, but for speedrunners, it's been a hotbed of competition and optimization for years, and I wanted to get in on the action. I decided to attempt runs of this game, but I knew I wouldn't have so much time to dedicate to it, so I imposed a challenge on myself. I wanted to see how far I could push my time down in just 1 week. For 7 days in a row, I did numerous runs of Mario 64, learning the strategies, improving my times, and suffering failure upon failure just like any speedrunner. I documented my progress as the week went on, and it's actually kind of fascinating seeing how my knowledge and technique evolved as the challenge continued and I fine-tuned my skills. And today I'd like to share the results of that little challenge and just how much I brought my time down in only 7 days. Side note, I recorded these runs in December of 2020 with a plan to have this video out early last year, and I had the script ready and recorded, but I had to postpone it to make room for other projects. As I gear up for 2022, I needed some smaller content to cobble together before the big videos hit the scene, so I figured I'd finally take this video out of stasis and finish it up. With that out of the way, let's get into it. First things first, let's explain what the speedrun is all about. Mario 64 has a bunch of categories that each has rules and requirements that must be followed. The goal is to make it to Bowser at the top of the castle, beat him, and grab his Power Star, and this is true across every category, but the number of stars you collect depends on what you're running. There are 5 main categories: 0 star, 1 star, 16 star, 70 star, and 120 star, each banning or allowing specific techniques and glitches to access areas before you're intended to reach them. So which category did I run? Well, 70 star and 120 star are both too long to learn and get good at if you're only playing for a week, and 0 star and 1 star require tricks that are far too difficult for a beginner to pick up. 16 star, on the other hand, is short enough to attempt multiple times a day, doesn't require any super complicated tricks, and has a lot of freedom in terms of making a route. So that's what I decided to run, and here's what it looks like. It starts off normal, with Mario heading into Bob-omb Battlefield to grab a star, and then gathering more stars in other levels on the first floor until we have 8, at which point the first Bowser stage is unlocked. Fighting Bowser lets us go to the basement, and our goal now is to get our star count up to 15, which we do by completing objectives in Shifting Sand Land, Leafo Lava Land, and Hazy Maze Cave. When you have 15 stars, Mips the rabbit will spawn in the basement, and we need to use him to perform a glitch called Mips Clip, positioning him in the right spot and placing him down to push us into doors. This allows us to get into the 30-star door with only 15 stars, and from there, it's time to finish the run. We grab one last star in Dire Dire Docks to open up the second Bowser level, beat Bowser once again, then head to the upper floors. Here we do the backwards long jump, or BLJ, where Mario builds up an incredible amount of negative speed by long jumping backwards on specific surfaces, in this case, stairs. By doing this, we can clip past both the 50-star door and the infinite staircase, leading to the final Bowser world and the end of the run. The current world records for this category, as of writing this video, are 14 minutes and 53 seconds on N64 by Ouija, 15:13 on emulators by Kano, and 15:17 on Virtual Console by Finny. For clarification, I did my runs on emulator since that's what I was using for practice, so it made sense to stay with that for actual runs. After about 60 or so attempts, I managed to complete 12 runs, so how did my week of speedrunning play out? Let's start at the beginning. For the first day, my mindset was simple: just do as many runs as I can and don't try to optimize them. I had enough practice to know that I could perform each section relatively quickly, but stringing them all together was a different story. I knew that my first run would be terrible compared to what I'd be able to get later in the week, but we all have to start somewhere. My first run clocked in at 34 minutes and 13 seconds, and it actually used a different route than I would use later in the week. I thought the owl in Whomp's Fortress, which you use for the Caged Island star, would spawn if you select stars 3 through 6 in the menu, so by collecting the 6th star using a trick called Cannonless and then selecting it from the menu, I was expecting him to spawn, but that's not the case. The owl only spawns if you clear the first 2 stars, but since I didn't know this, I had to skip the Caged Island star and collect an extra star in Cool Cool Mountain instead. I also only grabbed 1 star in Leafo Lava Land and collected 3 in Hazy Maze Cave, and stupidly, I also got the free Toad star as my 15th star. While MIP spawns once you have 15 stars, you have to load the castle after getting 15 stars for him to actually appear, so I wasted time reloading the castle and going back to the basement. Otherwise, the run is identical to my other runs, though with much crappier gameplay. I took 2 deaths in Shifting Sandland because of poor movement, and 4 deaths in the 3rd Bowser level, which was fittingly a heavily difficult section for me. I've played this game too many times to count, but speedrunning puts you in a different state of mind. Normally I'd be taking my time, but in an effort to go fast, I was slipping. This run sucks looking back, but in the moment I was incredibly happy to have a completed speedrun under my belt. So I kept on going, and the other runs that day marked some heavy improvements, this time with a modified route that would remain throughout the week. My second run was better right out of the gate since I got both Lakitu Skip, where you skip the Lakitu cutscene outside the castle, and Bomb Clip, where you take advantage of a bomb's hitbox to get the gate star faster, making for a very quick battlefield. I actually spawned the owl this time, though I failed Cannonless a few times and collected that star normally, and Mountain gave me a lot of trouble. This meant that I was about 2 minutes behind the last run, leaving Bowser 1, but most of the time I had to save was in the back half, so I wasn't worried. Sandland went much smoother, though I accidentally saved and quit out of this world and wasted about 40 seconds getting back to the basement. Cave was also a stumbling point this time, and I accidentally collected the MIP star, technically making this a 17-star run, but everything else went pretty smoothly. Bowser 3 was much better, with 3 major falls but no deaths, and the run ended with a time of 30 minutes and 42 seconds. Already I was seeing major improvements, so how low could I push it on the first day? My third run started off terribly, failing both Lakitu Skip and Bomb Clip, though I did make up time by not failing Cannonless and performing better in Mountain. I died in Bowser 1 and struggled in Sandland, and losing health in Lava Land meant I had to get the Big Bully Star instead of the Log Rolling Star. However, barring another death in Bowser 2, everything after this went pretty well, until I started the BLJs. Yep, I BLJ'd from the Infinite Staircase into the Wet Dry World painting on the floor below me, which kinda left me baffled. I'm not the only person to encounter this, as apparently it's an infrequent occurrence and a meme in the Mario 64 community, but I had never seen this before doing these runs, so that was fun. But I recovered from that, and with a pretty clean Bowser 3, I ended with a time of 29 minutes and 16 seconds. From here, I was getting a lot more confident in my abilities, but that confidence made me get cocky and lose time to poor execution, leading to a number of aborted attempts. I was happy with my times that day, but knew that I could do much better, and after a while, I started getting frustrated when I made little mistakes. This would eventually turn into a lasting problem as the week went on, but for now, I still had one more run to complete. This one was much better at the start, with a very good first floor ending over 2.5 minutes ahead when leaving Bowser 1, also marking the first time I finished the first floor in under 10 minutes. Sandland was once again a pain, so I opted to only collect 1 star there and grab an extra one in Hazy Maze Cave, losing almost 30 seconds. MIPS gave me some trouble, but thanks to both Bowser 2 and the BLJs being very good, I entered Bowser 3 4 minutes ahead of the last run. After an okay final section, my time ended at 25 minutes and 45 seconds, a 3.5 minute improvement over the previous run and an 8.5 minute improvement over my first run. In a single day, I cut down my time by nearly a quarter, but I was also experiencing the first major failures, and in hindsight, a number of patterns that would continue as I kept going started here. I was able to get the first sections down much better than the later ones, and I'm sure every speedrunner understands this feeling. Every run that doesn't make it to the final areas means you're experiencing those areas less often, giving you fewer opportunities to practice them. Bowser 3 is often where a good run of mine would die, often thanks to one little mistake, and that was evident right out of the gate. Still, I considered my first day of Mario 64 speedrunning a success, and couldn't wait to do more runs the next day. Day 2 started with something I should have done at the beginning of this experiment, watching a speedrun tutorial. Specifically, I used this one by MoreJam, and even though it's somewhat outdated, it is still a very good starting point if you want to run 16-star. It's from this that I learned about silly kicking, which allows you to climb up steep slopes by repeatedly kicking while holding the jump button. In the previous day's runs, I used this shortcut to get to the top of Whomp's Fortress, which is not only slower but much more dangerous, but with silly kicks, getting to the top is much easier. I was undoubtedly getting better even after just a single day, but I still had a long way to go in getting consistent at doing it all in an extended sequence. When you're speedrunning, there's a lot of strategies and techniques you have to learn, not just on a mental level, but a tactile level as well. You need to become so comfortable with doing every trick that pulling them off is second nature. This comes eventually over time, but sometimes developing that knowledge can cause you to feel a lot of pressure, which turns into doubt, which translate into poor performance overall. That's what happened to me on day 2, as I made several mistakes that boiled my frustration over and caused me to abandon more runs. What sucks is that the majority didn't even make it that far. Out of all the attempts that day, and there were probably about 20 to 25, only 3 made it past Whomp's Fortress. I hated how most of my runs were going so much that I gave up on them quickly, which gives you an indication of how badly I thought I was playing. And in retrospect, this was not wise for me to do. It reinforced a lot of bad habits, like judging the quality of a run too soon and not knowing when to give up. It was not a fun day, and honestly, I'm glad I decided to stick this project out and not just give up on running right here, because I was tempted to do so, but ultimately persevered. Anyway, of the 3 runs that actually made it past Fortress, 2 died in Mountain to the wall kick star, and the 3rd actually made it to Bowser 3. I was doing okay too, being about 50 seconds ahead as I entered the stage, although a couple of deaths and some terrible movement killed that lead and I decided to cut it there. Suffice to say, my second day of Mario 64 speedrunning had been a complete disaster, with no new improved times, certainly the low point of a week of runs. After that, I made it a goal on day 3 to actually finish a run. I didn't care if it was good or bad, all I wanted to do was get a full run done. And I did just that on the 3rd run of the day. Now, this run wasn't at all spectacular, in fact, it was pretty terrible. Most segments were sloppy, though I did make some pretty clutch saves like this slide in Mountain and the long jump to the star in Cave. However, I went into Bowser 3 1 minute and 45 seconds behind thanks to terrible BLJs, basically making it impossible to get a best time. And following some horrible gameplay, I probably missed 10 Bowser throws, I ended with a time of 30 minutes and 3 seconds. By all accounts, it was a bad attempt, but it was an attempt that made it through to the end, so I was at least happy with that. Thankfully, my next run was a lot better, even if it started off pretty weak, with Mountain especially kicking my ass. However, I made up a lot of time in the basement and actually pulled ahead thanks to a much better cave, though some time loss from Mips and Docks as well as a bad Bowser 2 put me 11 seconds behind. Thanks to excellent BLJs though, I was almost dead even with my best time, but with a 38-second buffer to improve over last record's Bowser 3. And lo and behold, it went great. I only lost 5 seconds off of my best Bowser 3 segment, leading to a new time of 25 minutes and 11 seconds. This run was pretty clean all the way through the stage, but it could have come crashing down had I not made one crucial save. I missed this long jump here and had to catch this ledge, and if I hadn't, it certainly would have killed any chance of this run having a better time, but luckily, that didn't happen. I had completed 2 runs back to back, and even though one was awful, I was already breaking the habit of resetting at the most benign of mistakes. Needless to say, I was in much better spirits and looked forward to seeing what I'd accomplish next. Day 4 was interesting because I only did 3 runs that day, but all of them made it to the final level, and 2 became new personal records. My first run started off well with a decent battlefield in Fortress, and since Mountain went better, I had a 45-second lead coming out of Bowser 1. Sandland went awesome with a new best segment, but poor movement and a death in Lava Land erased most of my advantage. Even though Mips and Bowser 2 still gave me some trouble, they were nowhere near as bad as in the last run, and I pulled a minute ahead, though this was nearly squandered thanks to some bad BLJs. Bowser 3 went very smoothly though, and the run ended with a time of 24 minutes and 59 seconds. I was still making mistakes, but my skills had grown to the point where I was more consistent at getting good segments and avoiding silly missteps. The next run again had a great start, with a best segment in Fortress by a fraction of a second, and the only real mistake was a death in Bowser 1 that didn't lose too much time. The basement also went incredibly well, leading to a new best Dock segment by about 13 seconds, and even though I died in the Bowser 2 fight, I was still nearly 2 minutes ahead going into Bowser 3. But not only did I die once to Bowser, a couple of missed throws brought my time down from a 2-minute lead to a 30-second lead. Still, I managed to clinch a final time of 24:23, which made me just 10 seconds shy of a 10-minute improvement over my first run. Once again, this run was pretty clean overall, and it gave me an idea of a goal I wanted to hit by the end of the week: sub 23. My sum of best segments at the end of day 4 was 21 minutes and 41 seconds, and while getting that time seemed too difficult, getting below 23 minutes was definitely possible in the next 3 days. And hey, since day 4 went so well, it makes sense to think that day 5 would probably go even better, right? Well... So the 5th day of this challenge was a Tuesday, which back then was one of the days that I live streamed on Twitch, which you should follow here in case I start regularly streaming again, hint hint. So I decided to do my day's runs live on stream, which, as I soon found out, would be a miserable, draining experience. Not that streaming is usually like that for me, but trying to be an engaging host and knowing there's an audience watching me really messed with me when trying to speedrun. That was evident as soon as my first run of the day, which made it to the end but was rife with mistakes and bad gameplay, especially from the basement onward. Nearly every other segment after this stunk, either thanks to deaths or bad movement, with only Bowser 2 going better compared to the 24-23. I even stated how I thought the run was awful and worthy of a reset, but I wanted to see it through because I wanted at least one completed run that day, regardless of whether or not it was a new best time. With a final time of 27 minutes and 53 seconds, it was certainly not a run to write home about, but why was I doing so poorly? Well, it was the pressure of streaming, mostly. I made several stupid mistakes because I was so focused on 2 things at once, and often I would screw up in ways that I hadn't before, throwing my brain for a loop and causing me to lose focus. I often reset runs early out of frustration, and knowing that I was doing so live was embarrassing. But somehow during the last run of the day, I gathered all of my skill and pulled off something truly remarkable. I got a best segment in Battlefield, Fortress, Mountain, Sandland, and Lava Land, and the only mistakes in this run before Bowser 3 were a death in Bowser 1, a missed throw in the Bowser 2 fight, and suboptimal BLJs. Taking everything into account, I was only 1 second ahead of my best time, but with a minute and 20 seconds to make up in Bowser 3. The stage went very well, but the fight proved very challenging with 3 missed throws that eliminated my chance of getting a sub 23. Still, with no deaths, I ended with a time of 23 minutes and 17 seconds, a new best by over a minute. It was a good run overall, but the problem is that improving on this run would mean playing well enough to not make any crucial blunders. I knew I had the skills to do it, but whether or not I'd be able to within 2 days, that wasn't clear, and it made me anxious yet excited to keep going. Unfortunately, day 6 is where a lot of bad habits came back to haunt me, probably because of the pressure to reach my self-imposed goal of sub 23. I was once again resetting if I failed early on or made small movement mistakes, and Battlefield and Fortress again became common choke points. Surprisingly, Mips was a common source of frustration whenever a run got to him, as I would either continuously fail to get Mips clip or in one case suck so bad at trying to catch him that I ended the run right there. It was not a good time. But remembering my conviction to finish at least 1 run a day, even if it's terrible, I went back in for 1 more run before stopping for the day. And I'm glad I did. Not because the run was good, because it wasn't, with the first floor being complete garbage, ending more than a minute behind after leaving Mountain, but making up some time thanks to a deathless Bowser 1. I also lost time in Sandland, ironically because I went too fast, since I was unable to grab the bird early and wasted time getting it a different way. The rest of the basement went smoothly though, including a best segment in Bowser 2, and when I entered Bowser 3, I was 5.5 seconds behind the 23:17, but once again, I had some time to spare. It was a close fight with some missed throws and unfortunate damage, but somehow I pulled it off with a final time of 23 minutes and 3 seconds, just shy of my goal, but with a new best final segment. This was not a good run. With how poorly I was playing, it's a miracle that I was able to clutch victory by getting the final segments right. It was a new best time, sure, but it could be so much better, and being so close to my goal without reaching it was painful. If I could get a run that combined this one's last segments with better early segments, I could annihilate my goal and get, in essence, the perfect run. But I only had so little time left to do it. This was it. The last day was upon me, and all the practice, improvements, and frustration had led to this moment. Sub 23 was within my grasp, and all I needed was 1 solid run in order to reach that goal. And I got it on my first attempt of the day. "21 minutes and 56 seconds is my current best time in Mario 64 16-star. Not only did I achieve my goal of sub 23, but I went a step further by beating the game in under 22 minutes. How the hell did I do it? A lot of my time saved in this run came from cleaning up the first floor and seeing good execution all the way to the end. I saved 11 seconds in Battlefield by getting bomb clip, something I failed to do in my 2303, and my fortress movement was much better. I took a death in Mountain, but managed to pull ahead by 41 seconds because it was still faster than in my previous run. Better movement in Sandland and a great Lava Land made up even more time, and while Cave gave me trouble during the Falling Rock Star, Mips went much better, saving about 5 seconds. The Bowser 2 battle was tight, and I almost died, but persevered with only 10 seconds of my lead stripped away, and the BLJs were pretty average. That just left Bowser 3. My movement through the stage wasn't the best, but I made it with 2 minutes left to beat Bowser and get a new best time. All I needed to do was get 3 successful Bowser throws and the run would be over. 1, 2, 3. It was a near perfect fight, and when I grabbed the star with a new Best Bowser 3 segment by just under 16 seconds, a 21:56 was in my hands. I submitted this run to the Mario 64 leaderboards on speedrun.com after I finished it, and it was verified within a couple of days. It entered the leaderboards around 915th place on the emulator boards, and as of making this video, it's currently sitting at 1439th place. If you want to watch this run in full, check the link in the description. I'm super proud of this time despite all the mistakes in it. So that was the end of my week-long experiment in Mario 64 speedrunning, and I gotta say, it was a lot of fun. Despite all the hardships I faced, it was a blast trying this category out, and it taught me a lot about how speedrunning works and the mental struggles you need to overcome. And truth be told, as good as my 21:56 run is, it's far from perfect. I failed Lakitu Skip, losing 8 seconds, my Mountain Death lost 25 seconds, that movement in Cave lost at least 15 seconds, and another 15 was lost by missing optimal cycles in Bowser 2. Add about 15 to 20 more seconds lost due to tiny movement mistakes throughout, and a run around 20 minutes and 40 seconds is very possible. My current sum of best segments is 2047, and considering how short this run is, getting as close to my sum of best as I did is actually pretty good. I don't think it's possible to get a sub 20 with this route though, as I need to implement different strategies to get my time down that low. But even with those imperfections, I was still more than happy to stop my Mario 64 journey there, at least for the time being. I might come back to this category one day to grind my time down further, but for now, 21:56 stands as my Super Mario 64 16-star record. Thanks for watching this video, guys. If you liked it, give it a like, leave a comment, and make sure to subscribe to see more videos. This is very different from my normal content, but if you want to hear me talk about a bunch of video games for way too long, maybe check out one of my retrospectives. I'm really looking forward to growing my channel in 2022 with all types of new videos, but until next time, this is Cloud Connection signing off.